This is your host, Dorothy Shelton. When something bad happens, it may appear to be meaningless suffering. But what if our most difficult experiences are actually rich with hidden purpose? Purpose you yourself planned before you were born. Could it be that we choose our life circumstances, relationships, parents, and events before birth? In today's video, Jeff Olsen courageously shares details of the car accident that claimed half his family. Despite the fact that he experienced great loss and suffering, he found out this was his soul's plan before incarnating into this physical plane. In his near-death account, he shares why his soul wanted to experience loss and grief in this lifetime, and how we ourselves can choose in every moment to serve the highest good of everyone involved. If you would like to know more about why our soul plans difficult challenges before incarnating in body, see the interview I conducted with Robert Schwartz. I will leave a link to that video at the end of this video and in the info box.
I got another little tutorial on choice. Because God said, you can be angry with me your whole life. You can be mad that this happened, that this was allowed to happen. And that's okay. We love you anyway. Or you can beat yourself up your whole life because you were driving the car. And as those communications were coming through, it's important to point out, I was being told that this was all part of your plan, your contract. In other words, I was being told you created this and we loved you enough to support it. And I was saying, why in the world? How would I ever create this? And it's like you wanted to experience loss and grief and pain, just like you had experienced love and bonding and family, so that you would know, so that your soul would know. And we loved you enough to allow that to happen. And I realized that Griffin, the little boy I hold, he loved me enough to go. You know, he said, yep, I'll go very early and very soon that you might get what you wanted to experience in life. And Tamara, my wife too. And then Spencer, my surviving son, it's like, yep, I'll stick around with you, Dad. I'll watch you limp and I'll walk with you. There was this strange perspective, a higher perspective of what everything meant in my life. There was this total accountability of I had created it and the entire universe supported me in this experience. We had gone on a family vacation. It was about 5 hours away and we had gone down to the Red Rocks of southern Utah and to actually visit my wife's parents. And it was Monday morning and time to come back to work. She must have got a whisper. She must have had some type of an inspiration, some premonition. Stop. I just want to go say goodbye to Mom and Dad one more time, which she did. It is a very big event because I watched as she ran up to the porch and she not only hugged her mother and father, she kissed them both. And I noticed that. You know, I noticed her kiss her mom and dad. And then she came running back into the car and jumped in joyfully and we were ready to go. I put the car back in drive and away we went. So I put the cruise control at 75 miles per hour, which is as fast as I could legally go because I was hurrying to get back home. I happened to just glance in the rearview mirror. I noticed Griffin, my youngest son, and he was sound asleep in his car seat. And it's almost like time stopped. You know, as I glanced at him and saw this beautiful child, I thought, wow, the miracle boy. We were told we would never have more children, and there he is. Griffin was just over a year old. He was 14 months old. He was just a toddler. And Spencer was 7, and I could hear Spencer playing. He had little action figures. You know, he was playing in the back seat, making all the joyous noise of a little boy. And I glanced over at my wife, Tamara, she had reclined her seat back and she was sound asleep, but she was still holding onto my hand. And in this moment, it was this profound moment of gratitude. It was like, wow, look at these healthy boys. And look at this beautiful woman who's still holding my hand. I mean, we'd been married for 10 years. And I thought, here she is holding my hand. But there was this profound moment of gratitude, and I'll never forget that. Now, there was reports of crosswinds. There was reports of a big pickup truck that was driving erratically on the interstate. Perhaps the most difficult part of the story is I believe that I may have dozed off at the wheel. But as I did that, I swerved to the right, I overcorrected to the left, and I lost control of the car. And the car then flipped and began to roll, not off the road, but down the road. I couldn't speak of these things for years. I blacked out as the car rolled. When it came to a stop, I was completely conscious. The first thing I heard was Spencer, my 7-year-old son. He was crying hysterically in the back seat. And as a father, I thought, I've got to get to him. I was unaware of my injuries. What had happened to me is both of my legs had been crushed. My left leg was eventually amputated above the knee. My back had been broken in 2 places. My rib cage was damaged. My lungs were collapsing. My right arm had almost been completely torn off. And then the seatbelt had cut through my midsection and ruptured all my insides. That's when I realized that no one else was crying. And I was aware at the scene of the accident that Griffin, my little boy, my youngest, his car seat had broken apart and he had been ejected from the car. Tamara, because she had reclined her seat back, she hadn't been restrained by the seatbelt properly, and she had suffered head injuries, head trauma, which took her life. Both of them were killed instantly at the accident. That's probably the worst, darkest hell a man could ever be in. I've got a hysterical child in the back seat that I cannot get to. I'm losing consciousness. Half the family is gone, and I'm aware of that. And I was driving the car. I mean, the guilt, the regret, the trauma, can't I just get those 3 seconds back, was overwhelming. I was struggling to stay conscious, and I couldn't breathe very well. And I was attempting to speak to my surviving son who was crying so hysterically. And I remember eking out to him, I said, "Son, it's going to be okay." And my feeling was that's a lie. This is not okay. This is not okay. I lost consciousness. And yet in that moment, I felt light. And it felt as if I was rising above the accident scene, like I was being lifted out of the car. And suddenly I was okay. I could breathe. There was no pain. I was super conscious. I'm like, wow, what just happened? How am I delivered out of this? And how am I okay? And how could this possibly be okay? And suddenly Tamara, my wife, who I knew was deceased at the scene, suddenly she was there. And she was alive and perfect and beautiful. There was no head trauma. She was gorgeous. And we were able to communicate. And she was emphatic. She kept saying, "Jeff, you can't come. You can't come. You've got to go back. You've got to go back. You can't be here. You've got to go back." And we had a conversation about Spencer, about this little boy that was in the backseat of the car, and she knew he's going to be okay. But if you stay with me, he's going to be orphaned. You have got to go back and raise our boy. And we made a decision. We made a choice, and I learned so much about choice in that moment. It's like, wow, here I was delivered from this trauma, looking at the woman I loved more than life, but I knew I had a little boy in the backseat of that car. And we together made the choice that I was going to come back. I said the most profound goodbye I'll ever say. We have no idea how powerful our thoughts are. I mean, when I had that intention, I'm going back, boom, I was suddenly in this hospital, moving freely about, looking and seeing the doctors, the patients, the nurses, the families of the patients. I was acutely aware of everyone. around me. Everyone I saw, I knew them. I knew them perfectly. I knew their love. I knew their hate. I knew their motivations. I knew their challenges. I knew their lives as if it was part of my life. There was a connection. There was a oneness. That's the word I use. There was a oneness about it. For instance, a nurse passed by me and they seemed completely unaware of me. And when I say passed by, I was not in the body at this point, but a nurse passed by. And in that moment, as if it was my own life, I felt the abuse that she had experienced as a child, the physical, emotional, sexual abuse that had happened to her. I was aware of it and felt it and knew it and experienced it almost as if it was my own. And then in that same instant, though, I saw her in her magnificence. I'm like, wow, look at her. Having overcome all of that, and here she is serving and healing and working in this hospital. And that's just one small sliver. Everyone I saw, this was the reality. It's like, wow, look at them. Look at them. I knew everything about them, and yet there was absolutely no judgment. It was infused, this connection, this oneness was infused with unconditional love without conditions. And they were me and I was them. It's that namaste, the divinity within me sees and recognizes and honors the divinity within you. That was a very real thing. I was experiencing that until I came up to a body, a man laying on the gurney that I didn't feel anything from, which was odd given this profound connected experience. And I stepped closer to look. And it was only then that I realized, wow, that's me. I was having this profound connected experience, but there was my skin suit. There was my body. I say it because I was completely conscious and connected, but there was my body. In this life, yes, coming up in a conservative Christian home, I believed in what I was taught is that life was a test. God was judging me. I was probably failing the test, and maybe if I was lucky, somebody would save me from myself. That was my belief system going into this. So this enlightenment, this communication from the divine of saying, hey, we didn't assign you. We didn't make you go down. We didn't do this to you. If life was a test, we didn't write the test. You did. This was the shift. It's like, you mean I planned this? Yes. And we loved you enough to support it. And you wanted to learn. I've contemplated this. It's like, I must have really wanted to learn forgiveness. And I'm sure at some point, maybe the divine said, well, who's the hardest for you to forgive? Oh, well, myself. I'm pretty good at forgiving my neighbors and even strangers. But, well, let's, then what situation should we create to where you really have to dig deep to forgive yourself? And I can't think of a more deep situation in which to do it and then to have all the players in it. There's two parts to this. I had the experience in the arms of God, and I'll tell this briefly, but years after the accident, actually when I had met Tanya, and when I realized I was having feelings for her, I realized I'm falling in love with this woman. She had began as a friend, and she didn't even live in the same state. We were pen pals, if you were. We'd write emails and talk on the phone, I went to my first wife's grave, and I remember being so angry. I went to her grave and I threw myself on the ground. I was walking with a cane at the time. And I said, how dare you? How dare you leave me like this? I mean, here I am trying to raise our son, and you're in that beautiful place and I'm limping around. And as I did this, I swear I felt her. I felt her hands on my shoulders. Now, I didn't see her with my eyes, but I was aware of her being there. I could feel her presence. I could feel her hands on my shoulders. And she reiterated this. She said, don't berate me. I loved you enough to go. And I said, you loved me enough to go? What? You loved me enough to go? And she said, yes, don't you remember? I mean, she said, I would have loved nothing more than to stay and grow old with you. But we made a deal. I'm not talking about this soul contract. We made a deal and I loved you enough to go. that your soul could experience what you came here to get, that your heart would be burst wide open. And I realized Griffin did the same. He's like, Dad, I'll break your heart in ways you can't imagine, that you might experience what you came here to experience. And having been held by God and told you created it, I was like, wow, total accountability, right? Of course, I was still in a fighting mood, and I said, I'm having feelings for another woman. And it was like we were arguing. And spiritually, she was there, and she said, she laughed at me. Dorothy, she laughed, and she said, of course you are. I know who you are. I know how you are. And in fact, she said, you can choose anyone you want, but I sent Tanya your way. And she said, I've been orchestrating this as part of this plan, part of this contract, part of this pre-earth planning. And she said, she's a good woman. And it's kind of funny. She said, Jeff, you're a pretty good dad, but you're a lousy mother. And my little boy deserves a mother. And so we had this spiritual conversation. Like I said, I didn't see her, but I know she was right there. And we were communicating. But she reiterated, this was a plan. This was a contract. We made a deal. And she encouraged me. She said, please choose joy. She said, you're holding me hostage in your grief. She said, I'm still connected to you. I'm only as happy as you are. And I've sent this magnificent woman into your life. And yet you're going to feel guilty about that instead of moving forward and choosing to be joyful, choosing to create a life, choosing to, bring a mother into our son's life. And you can imagine the conversation. But that's what really solidified for me. Yeah. We have these soul contracts, these plans, these things. Now, I thought a lot about that too, because I thought, well, so was everything just predestined? No, because we always have a choice. There's a blueprint, but we have a choice every day. And that's what I've really worked hard. It's like, okay, I want to be in tune. I want to be in touch. So I know the choice. I can see it as a choice, and I can make the choice that serves the highest good of everyone involved.
The 5 main reasons for planning big challenges before we come into body are balancing and releasing karma, healing, service to others, experiencing contrast, by which I mean experience what we could call not love. And the last one is healing or correcting false beliefs or false feelings about oneself.